Today's topic is how to maximize your nutrition in your 40s and later in life. So, as we age, obviously we change, pretty clear. And for those of you who are listening or watching on repeat, if you're in your 20s, yes, this will happen to you too, even though at the stage you think it won't. Clearly, our focus changes, motivations change, life changes, but so do our nutritional needs, our activity habits, and how we optimize our health. So the questions are sort of, how do we adapt so that we can just keep up the things that we want to do as we age? How do we make the best of where we are right here and now? Or how do we get potentially started for the first time later in life? And today I want to give some context around those questions because they're common questions that we get all the time. The trick is we really just need to focus on the right things at the right times by giving our bodies exactly what they need to help ourselves stay as healthy and vibrant as possible. And that's a really key phrase. There's a lot of people that are 40 and above that are listening to 20-year-old influencers trying to do the things that a potential 20-year-old is touting and wants you to do. Don't want to disregard information that's out there, but it's often not the best solution for anybody, I'll add, let alone people in their 40s and above. And today we're going to tackle why. I like to actually think it's less about the standardized age brackets. I don't really subscribe to them. It's more about where you're at in life that tends to matter rather than the actual standardized brackets that you fall into. For instance, you might have kids earlier than some and be living a different life. You might have a really highly stressful, demanding job comparatively to others. These matter in terms of what your actual life stage is and the net impact on the nutritional needs that you need based on the demands that you currently have. And that is much more important than a number of chronological age of where you might be. And this is important. We'll tackle it later. So wherever you're at, there's a couple of things. There's kind of standard foundational habits that I think apply for everybody at all times. We'll tackle those today. They're useful for everybody. They're not specific to age or demographic or anything. Then there's a few specificities, depending on where you're at, earlier in life, middle, later, doesn't matter, that can actually help really maximize the efficiency of your program. Today, I want to show you what those are. There's sort of three common frustrations that I see a lot or hear a lot when I chat with people, and over the thousands of people that I've coached, they come up every week, especially 40s and above. Number one, where do I start? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to eat. I don't know what good information is. Number two, even if they had that, I don't have the time. Life is demanding and it's difficult to implement a strategy. And this makes sense. There's kids, potentially. There's grandkids, potentially. You normally have quite a demanding job, potentially, in your 40s. You're stretched thin, and stress load and volume of responsibility is making life more demanding. And for those who are 20, and it's not to discredit what's happening in your 20s, there are just responsibilities later in life which you don't know what they are in your 20s often until you reach them, and the genuine stress load that entails and the impact that that has on the body. That makes things difficult. And the other one is what I used to do either doesn't work anymore, and it's hard to follow through and stay consistent. Today, we want to tackle those. What are the common fears? Well, unfortunately, it's actually easier to move somebody away from their fears than it is actually towards the goal that they want to have. So what are most of the fears that I hear when I'm chatting with people trying to coach them? They're in a bit of a slump. They've either gained weight or they've had it on for a long time. and that severely affects their mental health and their confidence levels. They might have anxiety around that, or coming into the fitness space, which I genuinely get, because most of the fitness space is pretty average and not very supportive, in my opinion. They are worried about what the next 10 years to 20 years may look like for themselves, for their families, for their kids, really. And they're genuine fears that they're missing out on life. What are they moving towards? Being a great role model, being a great partner, being there for their loved ones, whether it's supporting their own parents or siblings, being there for their kids, keeping up with their kids as they age, and either regaining that confidence and vibrancy in themselves and improving their mental health. Now, they're really important because that's what's going to help us, whether it's the fears that we're moving away from or the positive future that we're moving towards, that are going to help us understand why the plan we want is important and actually help us stay consistent on that. So what's actually happening 40s and above? Why do things potentially get harder as we age? There's a couple of reasons. Number one, your allostatic load, which is just the wear and tear. So the phrase I like is the chickens are coming home to roost. Your earlier choices are starting to show some of their long-term effects. I hear that a lot from people. Things get a bit harder. But there's actually a whole bunch of physiological things that are occurring. Let's chat through them. Number one, your hormone levels change. It's a natural part of life. Testosterone, they begin to gradually decline in men, starting around mid-30s, late 30s. On average, you decrease about 1 to 2, 1 to 3% every year after the age of 40. And it's critical. It's crucial for maintaining muscle mass, maintaining your strength or improving your strength, and it has a real direct role in fat distribution. So as levels drop, you may notice a decrease in your muscle mass and an increase in your body fat, especially around the abdomen, especially in people who aren't doing a regimen of training, specifically strength training. In women, they have an estrogen fluctuation, and this will be sort of into pre-menopause, maybe menopausal, depending on where someone's at. This can happen in anywhere from late 30s through to early 40s, late 40s. But estrogen plays a crucial role in maintaining muscle mass and bone density, and has a big role in regulating fat distribution, especially increasing visceral fat and belly fat. So they're really important. And those declines hormonally have a really large cascade in your body to other hormones, metabolism, and a few other things, which just makes things harder. We've just talked about the muscle mass drop. The problem with this is it actually changes your basal metabolic rate. So this is one of the reasons why doing what you used to do potentially won't work, because your standard of what you need or what you burn throughout just a day not doing a lot has reduced, again, making things harder. On average, most people will gain about half a kilo to a kilo almost every year or two in their 40s. This has a huge role in increasing the amount of stress that your body is under. All of this, you also get a slower metabolism. So your metabolic rate declines. So again, naturally with age, this just starts to decrease. This truly will affect the amount of calories your body is utilizing on a day-to-day. And this drops between about 1 and 3% a decade from somewhere in your 20s. It depends on the person. All of this with all of the demands that gradually increase in your life, which aren't normally incorporated into someone's fitness routine. It's movement and exercise and nutrition over here and life over here. But all of the demands that you're under and how stretched you may be and the volume of stress that you're under actually has a massive dictation to how your body moves and how it fuels itself and the nutritional demands that your body needs to stay healthy and optimize health, let alone trying to get some form of body composition goal in mind. This leads to an increased stress load. One of the biggest tasks that if you just can actually get on top of, you see such a tremendous cascade of positivity in your body. The thing is with the stress hormone cortisol is it's actually catabolic in its nature. It breaks things down. So when you are stressed, whether it's through sleeping, whether it's through looking after kids, whether it's through looking after parents, whether it's through work demands, whether it's through health demands, it kind of doesn't matter. A combination of those things for most people. It puts more cortisol in your system, which means your body's under more systemic stress, which means different energy systems and different organs have to work harder in response to that stress, which means the body is really spending time in that realm, trying to recover from that kind of load and that impact on the body, not doing the things that you want it to do, like build muscle, have high energy output and great cognition, help regulate emotions easily, and burn body fat and build muscle. Like, they're just not high on the priority list when that's happening. And that's the sort of context where it's like, oh, just do what you did earlier in life. Why it just doesn't make as much sense as people think, less due to what people are actually capable of. Because I see plenty of people in their 40s and 50s, 60s that are genuinely kicking ass, doing amazing things. It's just that the demands of life and the allostatic load that the body's placed under and just the gradual wear and tear, they come at a cost. So the cost is being really efficient with your programming, because the result that you want in terms of the health outcome and the optimal health that you want is in the refined, efficient program that most people aren't doing, and not what most 20-year-olds are doing. So what does that look like? So there's a couple of fundamentals, and I've kind of narrowed it down to 3. Number 1, eat a whole foods diet. Gold standard is as much as possible. 80% is a really good threshold. How I like to do it is I'll journal, and I'm really cut and dry. If it's not whole foods, it gets a red. That's anything from a packet. That's 90% of things in a supermarket. If it's not grown in the ground or caught in the wild, I don't consider it a whole food. The idea isn't to be stringent on people. It's just to be realistic and give people as much data as they can to figure out exactly how much of their diet is actually whole foods. It doesn't have to be there overnight, but half of what coaching is for is to give people the awareness to actually have a clear understanding as to where their nutritional profile is at. And the only way to do that is to have some hard and fast rules. Doesn't mean we can't make changes along the way, but that gives us the most data to actually have the most honest conversations so that we can actually help people implement the change, or give them the fundamentals as to what the change may be, but it's got to be based on something. And if we have too much gray and, oh, that's a bit of a green, oh, it's kind of whole foods, the only person it actually hurts is the client or the person that we're trying to help. Because it's their health, it's their journey that suffers from not having all the awareness around what truly is happening with their, let's for today, nutritional profile. That would be step 1. Step 2 would then look like potentially moving to a high amount, I should say, of low inflammatory foods in the diet. So you want to take away, in a better sentence, all the potential high inflammatory foods. Dairy is a common culprit. Gluten's a shocker. Coffee, generally speaking, alcohol plays a pretty solid part. The more inflammatory foods that you can take out of your diet, the better your body operates. Now, I want you to think of your body as a battery, big battery. When you're 20, let's say, this much of your battery is used for optimal function, and you've got this much spare battery. As life happens, you get less and less battery to be able to base how much you've got to be able to use, really. And more of that optimal function gets taken up of that battery, leaving you less room for spares, which is why there's so much more net impact on the body for things like going out and partying or staying out too late on a night out, having too much alcohol. What you're drawing from is your body's battery reserves. And if you go over it, it causes stress on the body. It's a really simple analogy to use as to why things that you used to be able to do that didn't cause nearly as much damage or effect are much, much harder the later you get in life, which can help be mitigated though by how optimal your health is at any period of time. High inflammatory foods, like the ones I just spoke of, they cause stress on the body. And as we discussed before, the more stress that your body's under, the harder it is for your body to be able to do the things that we want it to do, whatever our goals are. Number 2, protein is key. It gets touted a lot, but it is the number 1 macronutrient of all the macronutrients. The reason being, it's notoriously actually undereaten. 30% of your diet should be protein. And I don't mean meat, I just mean protein, which is another way that people get it wrong. There's plenty of great plant proteins. There's carbohydrates that are really rich in protein. There's vegetables that are really rich in protein. I need 30% of someone's total diet to be protein at a minimum. What does that look like? Well, fundamentally, it's a palm size, that wide, that fat. You need at least 1 for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You might be able to go to 1.5, 2, depending on how tall and how muscular you are. That's the easy fundamental way. The more data-driven way is I want 2 grams per kilo of body weight that you have. And that would be your target for the day. The reason we need protein is outside of water, what we're made up of more is protein. Protein's also the biggest metabolic driver for the body. It helps you burn the most calories. Without it, you can't build the muscle that you're looking for. And the muscle is really important because it actually gives us the balance that everyone's after when it comes to their nutrition. When they say they want balance, it's they want to get to lean and toned and optimal health, whatever that looks like for a person. And then they want to have some flexibility in their diet to do the things that they enjoy, whatever that may be. The best way to have the least amount of impact from the things that you enjoy is to have a high amount of muscle, because the high amount of muscle increases your basal metabolic rate and the amount of calories burned, which means the impact of what you're having has far less impact on your total overall day. That's really important. And if you undereat protein, it makes it really difficult to be able to get the actual muscle mass on and get that thermic effect of food in full flight. A fun fact is the 50% of the protein that you eat, the first 50% isn't utilized for muscle. Believe it or not, muscle is expendable for the body. It's not an essential function, but your immunity is. And a lot of the proteins and the enzymes in your body that handle your immune system and keep you alive from just everything that's out there is made up of protein and the amino acids in those proteins. So it will prioritize that function well before it does things like body composition and muscle mass and strength. They're nice to haves, not essentials. So if you're undereating your protein, then a lot of your immune function will get prioritized, not potentially some of your overall goals in the gym. The second point to the macronutrients is I would get in a good amount of fiber. About 25 grams would help tremendously. 1, it helps keep you fuller, which is really important, but it also helps stabilize your blood sugar and really aids the digestive process, which later in life, when people are inflamed, stressed, which normally leads to inflammation of the gut, it hinders your nutritional intake. So high protein, a nice bout of fiber, which doesn't have to be supplemented. There's plenty of good fibrous vegetables that are out there. And if you're doing that, it looks like a fistful at least, or a cup in breakfast, lunch, dinner at an absolute minimum. Realistically, you're looking at 5 to 6 cups per day. And then if you really want to get granular, you have 5 to 6 different colored vegetables to actually get all the nutrients that you need as well as the fiber. Number 3 is even if you have the first 2 intact, you need a plan. You need to plan, you need to plan, you need to plan. What does that look like? Well, commonly people just don't get granular enough on their plan. Truly, I'll do some shopping, I'll prep some meals, that'll be it. And then they wonder why they didn't quite get the follow through that they were after. I'll talk you through how my family plans so you can understand how granular I get to actually make sure that I have enough success for the week. And every time I don't stick to my plan, I regret it because I'm not prepared. On a Wednesday night, I look at what's left in the fridge, see what I have used and what I haven't used and what's left over. I then incorporate that into my weekly planning session, which is every Thursday night between 7 and 7:30 p.m. It's locked in my diary with my partner so we can discuss what meals we want to have together as a family for the week. On a Saturday, between 8 and 9 a.m., I go and shop for those nutrients. Whatever we need to do, whether it's at the shopping center, whether it's at the markets, we get it done. Then on a Sunday, normally first thing at 8 a.m., once we finish breakfast, I'll put our slow cooker on because then I can set and forget. And then at 12:30, I'll do lunches for the week. And then for dinner that night, I will cook whatever we're cooking. I use the slow cooked meal for normally Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. I use Sunday's meal for Sunday and Tuesday. I don't have to cook anymore at night because I've already done the cooking on a Sunday in an easy fashion. The reason I do it in that fashion is with young kids, I found it was really difficult to prepare meals at dinner time. One, I didn't know when dinner time was going to be. Two, I didn't actually know when my kid was going to be hungry. Three, even if my kid was hungry, I didn't know if he was going to give me enough time to actually prepare dinner. So life was a bit chaotic. So I took the controllables that I could have, which is if I have prepped up meals, it means I can actually just implement food whenever I need to and feed my kid and myself at the same time. And I found that as I was the cook at the time, it means I can't parent very well, which means now it's my partner and my kid who are parenting. And if he's blowing a gasket, it makes life very difficult. So we like to have more hands on deck, not less, which meant being more prepared for the food that we needed, which meant things like slow cookers and things like blenders and the oven made all the difference in being actually genuinely prepared for the meal. The reason I split up my cooking between a Thursday, a Saturday, and a Sunday is it becomes quite a big task if you get to Sunday and you have to look at your fridge, think about what food you want, prep that up with whatever recipes, go and actually buy the food and then cook the food. It takes the whole day. And often people don't follow through because that's quite a sizable task. So I break them down into little micro steps, which just increases, once they're obviously much smaller, which means I'm much more likely to do them. And it makes it, if I only miss one step, I can back it up somewhere else. Things I often talk to the coaching staff about, that I talk to a lot of my clients about, is after all of those things, you implement those into your calendar. You don't let your calendar run your life. You put things in your calendars, but you have to reflect and revise them a lot. And when I'm reflecting, it goes like this. Could I repeat this day every day? If the answer is no, what would I need to change? Because things are busy, things are chaotic. So I break them into dailies, and each day might be slightly different than another, and you might have different rosters. We can come up with A, B's, and C plans. That's totally fine. Can I repeat that day? If the answer is yes, we're on to a winner. If the answer is no, that's okay. What did we learn? What could we do differently to make that a winning day? You can do this at the end of the week. You can do this at the end of the month. You can do this every day. You're not expected to get 100% right every time, but you are. The expectation, honestly, for your own health would be to be open and aware to actually implementing the change and being agnostic to what's happening, because it's, am I moving closer to my goals based on the plan, the system, and my nutrition of what I'm doing at the time? If the answer is no, then whatever the plan is actually isn't working, and we need to implement change. Whatever that change may be, big or small, there's a whole range of things in between. One thing that I've learned a lot is your coach and other people can't be a bigger advocate for your health than you. You must take responsibility for your health, because whether you are the best version of yourself or really in despair about what's happening, you are the one that truly suffers the most. Your coach is an accountability partner and a teammate in your journey, but some of that means taking responsibility for your actions yourself. Your coach should then just pose questions to help get the most insight, to help you make the best change for yourself. Hence, the reflection piece isn't about lying to yourself. It's about being as open and honest as possible about what you're reading, what's working, what's not working, and what life demands are actually being really challenging at the moment. So we can come up with the best reflection process to build the most tools for your tool belt and the most default systems that you can default to when life is difficult. And it's always going to be difficult, which is what I've learned. That's not to scare people. That's actually to breathe a big sigh of relief, to be like, there is no actual better time to implement the change than now for most people. Because you never really get this window that everyone's waiting for to make the change. You ride the highs and the lows, you learn from the whole experience, and you start navigating your health and wellness journey and building more tools for your tool belt. And that's actually the key strategy for success long term. So after 40, potentially life gets harder. Speak to those who are over 40. I'm sure they can give you some insight. But being smart and being efficient and maximizing the true benefit of your program are actually the key to getting the actual result that you want. My 3 takeaways are eating whole food, making sure it's 80% or more. That would be your gold standard to get to. It would be increasing that protein intake and making sure it's a really, really strategic part of your planning process. It's the biggest win you can implement in terms of your food. And being specific with your planning. The more specific you can be, the more likelihood you are to follow through with that actual plan. I'll open the floor to any questions. We might be okay. No questions today.
Well, I was going to say not a question, but it's really good that you're having a session focusing on kind of being 40 and older, because we've talked about this. You and I, Sam. The dominant narrative around aging is, once you pass 40, it's all downhill from here. And I think it's very, very easy to internalize that and just start to believe it. So you give up and you don't try. But this realizing that that's not the case, and you can change it through things like exercise and looking at nutrition. It's a really, really important message.
Yeah, and I see so many people post 40, especially in this place. Like, we're so lucky that are just kicking ass. Like, it's amazing. But I just like, so much of the industry is like, train like a bodybuilder, train like a 20-year-old. It's like, to be fair, most of them train like shit. So I couldn't like disagree with it more. It's about being efficient and actually maximizing the amount of work to recovery and the amount of good quality nutrition. And those demands just kind of change as life changes. It's not really a post 40 thing. It's just however busy and demanding your life is, things just kind of need to change, because most 20-year-olds overtrain, undereat, and barely sleep. And I wouldn't say that's a really good recipe for most people to get optimal health with. And they feel the wear and tear of that later in life. That's most of the late 30-year-old, early 40-year-olds, if they've been gym junkies, they've got plenty of wear and tear. That's half the reason they've got so many injuries. Done, Vince. Any questions today, or you good?
No, all good. That was great. I missed a little bit there. I got interrupted
right.
by the director of the business, but I am all back, and I'll review the last part.
Thank you, mate. I really appreciate everyone joining today, and I really hope the series that we're going to do, which is optimizing health later in life, I honestly think it's actually not just a framework for people that are 40 and above. It's actually the framework I think everybody should follow, because everybody is overtrained, overstressed, undernourished, and focusing on things that, while they may benefit health potentially, are such small wins comparatively to some of the big wins that are out there, that they can truly transform their health with half the amount of effort if they just reallocate what they think of as the true things that are benefiting their health. So I'm hoping that's what we get out of the next month. Thank you very much.
I will say one thing, Sam, just from a personal level. and this may just be because of the way things have gone for me, but I found when I was at your stage, when my kids were really young, to be my hardest. That's when you just eat whatever crap is around and all that sort of stuff. And I guess because I've doing the things that you're talking about now, it feels a lot easier. But I think that, yeah, my 40s was made harder because of my 30s.
Yeah, and to be fair, I reckon that's most people.
Yeah.
I genuinely, I kind of live it, right? Like it's my job. It's what I've done for a decade and a half. And I could easily say the last 2 years have been the most challenging by far. Yeah, I've gone through different undulations, but it's taken a real effort. And honestly, most of it, because you just can't trust your intuition when, I've never been tighter than I've been in the last 2 years, right? Like, I didn't even know I could be as tired as I've been. And I'm sure when I have the second one, I'll look back and be like, oh, one was so easy. But just the sheer exhaustion, tiredness, and I would get up and just be craving things, because I've had an hour and a half, 2 hours of sleep, and I'm hungry for whatever reason, and I'm stressed. So it's difficult. So the plan, like having things in the fridge pre-made and having leftover meals there ready to go that are easy, and having an automated grocery list that rocks up to your house. You don't have to get to the shops. It's just minimize as many barriers as possible for good nutrition. Because one, it's what I truly want and truly value, but two, I feel like I'm nicer at home. I'm a better partner and probably a better dad when I'm optimizing my health to as good a capacity as I can, which when I'm not training, eating junk and drinking a lot, just doesn't seem to bring out the best in me. And that's truly what I think about when I'm trying to make good decisions after being up all of the night. So I'm hoping 40s is even easier.
It will be for you. You're in a much better position than most 30-year-olds.
We'll watch this space, Vince. Chat soon.
Cool, mate.
Thanks for today, gentlemen. Have a wonderful afternoon.
You too.
Hey,
Sam.
Sam.